It's the Unnamed Indie Comic Show with Skip and Ash talking about indie comics like firepower. It's the Unnamed Indie Comic Show with Skip and Ash talking about indie comic DECORUM and east to west. It's the Unnamed Indie Comic Show with Skip and Ash talking about indie comics like firepower. It's the Unnamed Indie Comic Show with Skip and Ash talking about indie comic DECORUM from east to west.
Three, two, one. What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another fantastic episode of the Unnamed Indie Comic Show with your hosts, Ash, that's me, and Skip and Tosh. How you doing, Skip?
Oh man, I'm doing so good. Man, I literally, I'm not joking. This is not for the show. I'm not just overhyping everybody up. I know everybody's used to the positive Skip vibes and all that stuff, as if there's never anything wrong in the world with skipping in the world of comic books. But I literally have not physically felt better and this well in years. So,
Wow.
thank you for asking. I feel great, and of course, we all know that this is my favorite Monday, some of my favorite Mondays of the month.
Yeah, wow. Did you get bit by a radioactive spider or something?
You know what? That's probably why I like went down with this crazy fever and was coughing and like slept for 3 days straight. Had this big old pimple on the back of my neck. Must have been that spider bite, man.
Yeah.
Is that explain why like I can like cling to walls and read more comics than I normally do before? Is that what happened?
I maybe, but you probably shouldn't tell me because it's very important if you develop superpowers that you don't, you're not supposed to tell anyone. I think.
Oh, what? Oh, okay. Well, that stays here in the chat and in the stream, and that doesn't go outside of here. Okay, Maranya and Jimmy and Snatchface and Tehillim, that stays here. All right, circle of trust. Circle of trust.
I think we can trust everyone here. Speaking of everyone here, you guys that are in the audience, thank you so much for being here. This is our 6th episode, which means if you count the pilot, it's actually the 7th episode, but we cheat on the numbers, just like comics. We couldn't be here without you guys. You guys make it possible, honestly. A lot of times, you hear that different YouTubers, podcasters, and the stuff, they all say that. But this isn't a monetary show. This is a show for the people, for fans of comics, and that's what you guys are, or that's what we are. And we just love talking about comics, and we're here to facilitate that discussion. This episode has been a long time waiting because things got kind of hung up. If you guys remember 2 weeks ago, we did have a fill-in episode that worked really well, that hangout. I hope you guys did enjoy that. If you did, let us know if you want more of those. I certainly had a lot of fun. I believe Skip did too. What did you think about that hangout show? I haven't really talked to you too much. You've been sick.
Yeah, no. Well, luckily, even though we haven't talked a whole lot because I've been sick and busy with other stuff, right after that show, we did get to spend about 15 minutes. It wasn't super long, but I remember us both gloating about it. And Nalo had said a few things, but oh man, it was on point. I mean, it was fun. We got to discuss a lot of different topics. Anytime you get to do your lists of is always fun and challenging. The chat, like the highlight, seriously, the highlight was the chat. The chat was more active than it had ever been. It was popping for us to be able to go back and forth because, yeah, we have our voices. We're on here, but Ash continues to tell y'all, and he sounds like a broken record, but it's only because it's the truth. You guys make the show better than it is. You guys are the X factor of the show, the chat. So we'll be up here kicking, these comic issues and volumes and trades back and forth as long as we got, as long as we're sucking wind. But y'all are the cherry and the icing and the sprinkles on top, and you guys were awesome last time around. So that made it really, really fun.
I agree. I apologize, everyone, for the slightly late start. Some of you guys noticed that. Skip and I were getting some drinks. I went to the fridge. I was making fun of you, Skip, in the chat that apparently you went to China to harvest your tea leaves so you could make your tea.
Man, don't let everybody know I got a Learjet too. You letting them know I got superpower. I'm letting them know they got
I was letting them think you flew
letting them know
coach.
about my Learjet.
I didn't. You blew that one.
Oh man, coach. I wouldn't be back until the 2 Mondays from now. We'll be talking about East to West Volume 7 and maybe Decorum, but that probably will Jonathan Hickman and Mike Hilson must be going to China to harvest their stories because that thing is taking forever to come out.
No kidding. Got to find ways to delay the show so we can wait for their comic books.
Seriously,
there's a big snowstorm going on. Apparently across all the country. I'm in California. I haven't been feeling anything. What about you? You're in California too, aren't you?
I'm in Cali, yeah. No snow where I'm at. If you go, because I'm in between San Francisco Bay Area and seriously, Lake Tahoe. So Sacramento is dead smack in the middle. We're in the valley. So we got this crazy like rainstorm that was like knocking down people's fences and all that stuff. But I was in a writing session with Comics Quirks, my main man Jimmy, earlier, and he was like, I was like, yeah, I gotta skate out of here because I gotta start prepping for the show with Ash. And he was like, I gotta go to the store to get some like, just stuff from the store. And I'm like, cool. And he was like, but my car is covered in snow. I'm like, what do you mean your car is covered in snow? And then he sent me a picture, and I'm like, bro, do not go outside, Jimmy. Don't go outside. It was crazy.
Yeah, I've been looking at all these people posting their pictures of the snowfalls and stuff, and I'm just like, sorry, don't know what that's like here. But when you live in California, we have to look. Skip and I know we have our own things to deal with in California, so it's not often we get to poke fun at other parts of the country. So if snow is all you have to deal with, I think I would take a little bit of snow.
Oh yeah, definitely.
For some of the other things that we have to deal with in this great state of California. For those of you guys just swinging by just now, welcome. I've seen a couple new faces. Joe Corallo has joined us. Good to see you, Joe. He makes the rounds as a resident comic expert on several other podcasts and YouTubes. I always like to hear what he's got to say. There's another voice, Jerry Unbound. I think that name sounds familiar, but my memory's so bad. Welcome to any of you. If you're not part of the chat, that's fine. Sometimes lurking is all good. We're going to be talking about firepower tonight. If you're new to the show, the format of what we do is it's every 2 weeks. We do an episode. We talk about current comics that Skip and I both love. This is an advocacy show, meaning we're not here to review stuff and critique it all to hell and tell you how it failed and all that stuff. We get it. Sometimes it's not going to be good. We're here to geek out and just be a fan and gush over the books. That's it. This is a purely a biased channel or show in that regards. Reviews can be saved for other things. And so 2 of the books that Skip and I are currently really hot on that are on the stands are Firepower and Decorum. So we kind of alternate between those to do those. Sometimes no books come out and we have to wing it with something else. And we're always on the lookout for good new books. So post them in the chat if you have new indie comics that you think we would both love. That's what this is here for. And also share them that you think everyone else would love, not just me and Skip. Word of mouth is a huge, huge deal in comics. It's such a micro industry. And especially when it comes to indies, these guys can't afford to really get the word out there. They rely on passionate fans to do what we're doing right now. And so do that. Share it. I know I've come across a lot of great books because people shared with me. In fact, the 2 books we're reading right now, I'm reading because some of you guys said, Ash, you need to read this. And so I did. The other thing we do besides talking about the current book, is we feature a book of yesteryear. Maybe it's a couple years old. The series is over, but it still lives on in the trade paperbacks. And I know in the modern era, a lot of people love to just read comics in the trades. They don't even get floppies. They don't. They go to Barnes and Noble and they pick up their trades. They maybe never even step foot in a comic book store, and that's okay. Not everyone needs to collect comics the same way as everyone else. Just so we can enjoy the stories together. But one of the things I thought of, and I threw Skip's way, and he liked it, was this idea of like the water cooler talk of, when you miss something, let's say you remember like a favorite TV show. One that I missed out on was Lost. Initially, when that show came out, everyone was talking about it except me because I wasn't watching it. Then eventually it came out on DVD and I was like, I need to check out this show, and I blind bought it as this season 1. I was like, I'm gonna sit down and watch this, and I did, and I loved it. But I missed out on all the whole experience of that first season where everyone was talking about the show, and that stuck with me to this day. And sometimes we go back and we read older trades, and we do enjoy them. They're still fun and great, but wouldn't it have also been even better to sit down at the time when it was coming out and geek out with other people who are discovering it for the first time? Well, that's kind of what we're replicating in a small fashion here, at least for me, on East of West, which is the current book we're working through. Every 2 weeks we read one trade through that series. We're currently on volume 6. Now, Skip has read this series already. It's one of his favorites of all time. And for the first one, I was the one that nominated we do this, so I would get to be that new voice, a person who has no idea where the series is going, and be able to give you my first impressions and be like, where's it going? And invite you guys, if you haven't read it, to jump in on it with me, and read one trade paperback every 2 weeks, be kind of like a book club. And if you have read it already, if it's already an old favorite of yours, maybe pick it up and reread it. Or just come in and hang out with us and remember the books. So that's what we're all about. I know that's kind of long-winded, but I always assume every show might be someone's first show. Before we start things off, one of the things that's a tradition around these parts is to make sure you have a nice, refreshing beverage to wet your palate while you sit there and enjoy the show. Tonight, the Ash portion of the show is brought to you by Sam Adams, Boston Lager. That's what I'm drinking. Skip, I hear you went to China to do something special.
Got a lot of friends over there, what I'm saying, putting together all of the different awesome plastic products that I buy, some more dependable than others. The most dependable of them all, this Mindful Mint Yupon tea, which is pretty fantastic. Warmed it up. Just threw a little bit of honey at the bottom, what I'm saying, get the pipes ready to tell our side and just show our love for these awesome indie comics. So big sip out to Acai and their Mindful Mint Yupon tea. It is top of the line.
Very nice. I always wanted to get into tea because I'm one of those kind of people. Like, if I'm gonna get into something, I just don't. I want to get into it, but I never knew what to do, so I just I just never did, because I was like, I don't really know squat about tea. I would just go buy something probably too expensive and not very good and then mess it up. But I've always wanted to. I do like tea from time to time.
I know the name is out there, and for when you're wanting to get into things, sometimes a known name seems like too easy of a way to get in. But if you've ever heard of Tijuana, they are a pretty awesome place to get started. And the main reason I say that isn't just the name, but I learned a lot by going to there. I had kind of already knew a little bit about tea and mate from hanging out with a bunch of Rasta cats in my early skateboarding days back when I was 14, 15, dating around Sacramento with pros, trying to turn into one. I started learning about it then, but I went to Tijuana one day thinking that I had a pretty strong handle on tea, pun intended. And they just, the person at the counter literally just spent time just edifying me on, like the different qualities, the different ones that they had up on the shelves, pulling them out, putting them up to my nose, allowing me to smell them, and then There was one that I really really liked, but it wasn't one of the samples that they had out. So straight up, just like, oh, I'll just make a sample out of it, and just took some right there, busted out another sample, like little setup, just pressed it right there, and let me try it out. So Tijuana is a really awesome place to start, especially obviously a lot of the tea there is a loose leaf tea, and because of that, like I kind of have flashbacks to that, and it was hanging out with one of my friends, and I got out my French press today so I can bust out some of my loose leaf tea and get away from these packets. But the packets are convenient. You're working. I got kids. The kids are they're learning from home. I've been working from home for 6 years. Just grab the packet store and get some honey. Grab my Eye of Agamotto Doctor Strange MCU movie mug. Throw it on top of my little like a little coaster that looks like a floppy, old PC floppies. Sit down here and get ready to talk about some comics with all of y'all. Life is good.
I got a nice coaster that my drink is sitting on right now from Reckless.
Ooh, I wonder where you got that from.
Some really cool guy got me this Reckless coaster. It's awesome. It makes me reminded we got to do another criminal cast here soon. Wish I had something to tell the folks right now, but we're not here to talk about teas, Skip. I know you're a big tea lover, but you're almost as much probably a comic book lover, and that's what the fine folks here are here to hear about. I just said here to hear about. So we're going to be talking. We're going to be talking about some firepower. Now, folks, what we're going to do, this format, we've been talking about how we're going to do things. For firepower, we're going to break down the issue scene by scene and talk about it. And hopefully give your feedbacks, how you guys like it, prefer to previous episodes. That would be really good to hear. Also, give your feedback on the issue itself. This is as much for you guys to chime in, give your thoughts, opinions. Did it move you? What did you particularly like about the book? Things like that. Do you have any insights? Whatever it might be, feel free, jump in. We're all friends here. And I'm just going to get us started off, if I may, because I like reading stuff. I'm going to read the previously on firepower, and Skip's going to get us started after that.
Do it.
Previously, Wei Lun is dead. At least, that's what the Dragon's Claw assassins believed, before reporting back to Chao Fang. However, Wei Lun moved his heart to avoid the fatal blow, living to fight another day. Now, Owen Johnson can no longer escape his past, and his only choice to take back control of his life and protect his family from further attacks is to return to the Temple of the Flaming Fist.
Indeed. Perfect way to set it up. And here we are. So in this particular scene, we have Chao Fang, or Master Chao, sitting there in the Temple of the Flaming Fist and just relaxing. Obviously he had just gotten the bad news from his henchman that he had sent out trying to dispatch Owen and his wife at dinner, and beyond that, they failed. And as he's sitting amongst the rubble from throwing them around and punishing them for failing, we get Chao Fang walking up right behind him, asking who those people are. They talk they kind of have some kind of open or empty dialogue a little bit, and Master Chao can sense the tension coming from Chao Fang, throw some swords his way, some knives, some daggers, and basically.
Hold on one second. I believe you made a slight type.
Ma Guang.
Ma Guang instead of Chao Fang.
Ma Guang.
Chao Fang is the big bearded dude.
The big bearded dude. Yeah, he's one of the. He's in that scene. He's one of the people on the ground. But Ma Guang is the one that approached Master Chao, and the one that has some daggers flying right at his chin. Of course, they have a battle, and basically, Ma Guang is talking to Master Chao about, hey, I should have followed Wei Lun, Master Wei Lun, this whole time. Like, I'm seeing more and more why it was a good idea to not follow your teachings, but rebel against them. and Master Chow gets him on the ground, had a clasp around his neck. Ma Guang is able to grab a rock, oops upside his head right to Master Chow, and then puts a swift move on him, knocks him over the head with a big old mallet, basically Chow Fang's mallet. So there we go. He becomes relevant again. And after he gets Master Chow out of the way, kind of gets to a point where he can overlook the whole Flaming Fist Temple, kind of that last peak before he knows he'll never see it with his own eyes again, says goodbye. And Master Chow tries to tell his people that he beat up to go after him, but one of them tries to get up and collapses back to the ground, and he just sighs knowing that he's not going to be able to catch up to Ma Guang. How did that scene kind of play out for you, Ash?
Well, I really liked it. This would have not probably worked for me as an introduction to the story if this were like the first issue I picked up, because I wouldn't really know what's going on. But if you're following the series, you've had a lot of drama, lots of things have been going on, so you're picking up right where, right into the action. And Ma Guang has been a character that has kind of been on the sidelines for a lot of the story. He was a big part of the original graphic novel, The Prelude, whichever one you need to read, by the way. But we haven't heard or seen too much about him, and it's kind of nice that Kirkman seems to be telegraphing that Ma Guang is going to be very important. We get a nice action scene. I really like how Ma Guang pulls one of the knives out of the air with his with his fingers, it's so delicate, like the way he does it. Grabs a knife. The fight's pretty cool. He holds his own with the master. One of the things that Ma Guang was noted for in the story thus far as sort of the student who never could quite get there. And he had a big jealousy towards Owen, the main character, because Owen was kind of like the chosen one, so to speak. And Ma Guang just was like the C student, like he could do stuff. He was fine, but he just wasn't at that level. And you kind of saw, and it was kind of like a trope that it went through, and it was cool. I don't have any complaints about it. But now Kirkman is kind of coming in. This is how I feel. Like Kirkman's going, I'm not done with this guy. This guy's important, and where he's going to be used. And I like that he's got a code and an honor. He's not just a jerk. Sorry, I'm trying to say multiple words at the same time. He's not just a jerk. In the original graphic novel, he kind of was that way. He was kind of an antagonist who got in the way. But that was because there was different things going on. It was a different story. It was a different time. Ma Guang's not evil. And here he is standing up to injustice and evil. And here we see the master basically saying, if you only knew what we were doing, you would join us and stuff. And he's just like, well, there's no chance of that now. And he just understands. He's gone. And we get this really cool scene that you talked about where he's overlooking the temple. And that's my favorite panel in the whole book of this issue. Well, it's one of my favorite panels of the whole book. It's just so beautiful, and I love the establishing, like where he's at, and it just takes your imagination. I'm a very imaginative person. I like to let my mind wander, and seeing this it just helped me kind of get into that place. And he just kind of says real quiet, goodbye. And I just love how he hops away. This 2 frames later, and you see the multiple shots of him and he's like kind of on his toes. It just looks, there's a really good artistic shot to show how agile he is. Little things like that. Like you said, I'm glad that you kind of cleared that up, because when I read this issue, I was like, wait, what's going on with the girl collapsing? Because in the first part of the book, he's kind of like looking at the rubble. I thought these were people that he had just gotten done destroying, and he's kind of overlooking like, but he's more of just these idiots. Like, they failed me, and he's wanting them to he's like, get up and get him, and she's like, no. And he's just like, sigh. What about you, man?
Yeah.
Did I cover everything, or did I miss anything?
Nah, you hit some great points that I didn't even think about. Part of the reason why it's so cool just hearing someone else's side of it. I kind of briefly touched on the things that jumped out to me, but I talked about them in passing. So if I was going to put a little more emphasis, um, yeah, that reading things, issue to issue, we do get that gap where sometimes, there's a gap in time where hey, the story left off here and we left off here. So picking back up, sometimes it's a little like, okay, hold on, wait, what is the context of this scene? And I really appreciated that this picked up kind of where the last issue left off, especially with Master Chow. And I like things like that. I like how, kind of paying not, dipping back into the past, to further the story along. It keeps everything in a very cohesive manner, and it does feel more lived in because that's the continuity within the comics. We live in our own type of continuity. So I really enjoy things like that. The same people there. And to one of the points that you made, they failed him, and now he failed. And we know how kind of dictator teachers and senseis, or whatever you want to call them, mentors, can be when they're not good. So he failed, and then he expects them to make up for their previous failure, but he failed twice because he also beat them up to a point where they can't be of use to him in that moment. So I just like how that there was kind of compound interest in how this scene kind of paid back off, if we kind of really dive into the panel and into the reality of the mistakes that Master Chow has made. He didn't just make one mistake. We're learning about a major mistake that he made that put him in opposition to Master Wei Lun to begin with. In addition to letting Owen get away, in addition to now failing at Ma Guang, sending those people out, them failing, and then him beating them up, and then now that's an additional failure. They're not even in a space to make up for their failure and go after Ma Guang. So just all of those types of things, like when you start unraveling these stories, this is a comic that you can maybe burn through in 10 minutes. But if you worry less about taking a lap around the pool and maybe diving down to the bottom of it and seeing how deep it goes, Kirkman and Samney are doing some work.
For sure. That's a great analogy. I like that. This is definitely a book. Don't blow through it. I encourage you when you're reading these books, like Samney's art seems kind of can be simplistic. You can see on this pages right here, this is not one of many certain modern types of comics where there's just word balloons all over the place. Kirkman's here to tell a story. He likes to let those artists do it. And if you're used to just plowing through dialogue and narration bubbles and things like that, it's easy to just get in that feeling and just burn through these pages. But take your time. One of the things that Kirkman understands so well is pacing, and each of these panels work on beats. In the same way, I use this example a lot, the same way that you wouldn't speed up your music to get through a song faster because it ruined the song, you don't want to do that with these comics, right? You want to read it at the beats that they're supposed to go, and just train yourself to just take each of those panels at the same speed. Let's go ahead and get to the next scene.
In the next scene, we come over to Owen's job again. I just love us kind of going back to that, and he is speaking with the person that he works along, that he runs his business with.
Larry.
His name is Larry. Now I love coming out of this. I know when we talk about splash pages, often in modern day comics, we think of big action pages, or maybe just some really nice landscapes, nature, and all that stuff. But for a book that is so much about relationships, I really appreciate us jumping at a full page spread of just Larry's face looking up in semi belief at Owen as as Owen is describing to him that he's got the fire. He can shoot fireballs, and he's got the firepower. So, and it's like one of those video games. But anyway, Owen is just kind of letting him know the lay of the land, and also asking him like, hey, I'm gonna need you to look over the furniture business for a while. And also, in addition to that, I need you to look after my parents as I embark on this trip that I'm getting ready to go on. And I just needed you to be up to speed, and in order for you to know exactly what you're dealing with. It's really cool, Larry kind of being a natural normie, calling Owen a superhero, and Owen and his humility, which I really appreciate. Not really basking in that, but kind of fanning it off, really taking us back to that place where he's a man with a family who happens to have this ability and is trying to deal with this whole situation as best as he can. Because in the end of it, he was really just trying to find out his origin story, where his family comes from. So he leaves the business. Larry's going to look after it for him to ensure that he has a job to come back to after the trip is over. And as Owen is using his abilities to make his exit, we see that there is someone off in the distance looking upon him. And that is a beat from the previous comic. We'll get there. We go. Oh, now, did you want to mark that as a scene, or did we want? Yeah,
Yeah,
let's
yeah.
mark that as a scene.
That's a
Let's
scene.
mark that as a scene. Yeah.
So
How
this
you
is just a
feeling about
quick.
that one?
This is just a quick little scene. You're right. It's important to keep these characters, to keep the three dimensionality. I think in these characters' lives, it's easy to sometimes forget about that. I like that this was a full page spread for Larry's face, because oftentimes when we get back to the beats I was talking about, sometimes, how do I say this? Sometimes you can judge how fast you should go through panels by how big they are. I think of it more of like maybe page. Like, so if you see a full splash page, you shouldn't just treat that as like one panel. It's meant to be like like here's a break, like hold onto it and then move. Very much like you would see in movies sometimes when they'll throw up that shot where they like focus in on something and hold it to keep your attention. It's hard to describe what I'm talking about. I don't feel like I'm doing it very eloquently, but I like that both the writer and the artist have that understanding. Kirkman's just really a master at it. And it sounds boring when I'm talking about it right now, but when you read the book and when the creators know what they're doing, it just adds to the narrative. This book is so much a pleasure to read, and part of it is because of these minor details like this that I'm talking about that you don't even think about consciously. When you're reading it, you're just like, oh, this is enjoyable. But when you go down and go backwards and break it down, why something works, these are those little techniques that separate the men from the boys, so to speak, when it comes into creating comics. I think this is also a time for we're probably going to forget about Larry for a while, I imagine. I could be wrong, but it's a way for Kirkman to say, I didn't forget about Larry. There's no dangling plot threads here. But I'm going to use this to introduce a new plot thread. And I love the water tower, seeing the girl zoom in. Who's this mysterious girl? And Owen hops a fence. She hops off the water tower. And immediately as a reader, we're like, ooh, something's on with this.
Yeah, definitely. I almost thought you said dangling participle. That would have been a nice little one for Joe out there, who's currently working on comics as he's spending time.
I don't want to go into that level. Joe will start schooling me.
Just don't start talking about Oxford commas, and I think you and Joe will get along just fine. But yeah, no, I mean, that it's paying back into those things. It is just a reminder. I really appreciate, it can be simplistic, to think and to judge things in that way, but also at the same time, simplicity is one of the highest forms of complexity. Mm-hmm. So yeah, big panel, big page, pay attention. I think that applies more often than not.
That's a great point.
And I think that was a really, a really good call out, Ash. Again, in this scene, it was a brief scene, but kind of like you said, we may forget about Larry, but Kirkman hasn't. And the only reason that we're forgetting about Larry is by design. And you did explain that very well, by the way. I wanted to give you props for that, thanks. But it is by design. It matters, and Ash is talking about beats and rhythm. And all of that stuff matters when it comes to these comics. If we think about a drummer, one of my favorite types of drummers outside of like a prog rock drummer is a jazz drummer. And as you go from the different parts, you don't pay, you may sit in the same pocket, you may maintain majority of the same rhythm, but there will be subtleties, there will be ghost notes and different things that come out that will give variation and flavor to the overall song, even though you may not go out into the wild like maybe a prog rock drummer is. And that is a lot of what Kirkman is doing. Kirkman may bring something in like a jazz song and then take it away, and we may not come back to it for a long time, but we will. When we do return to it, we have this fresh and this renewed appreciation and view of that. And do not be surprised if Larry is one of those characters. And even if he doesn't live up to that, just the simple fact that we have relatives, friends. I went and played basketball today, and there was a guy from high school that I hadn't seen in years. And it was like, oh, life brought him back, just like Larry got brought back into this. And again, it just really, really grounds the story. It's pretty awesome. Another key thing is I just really appreciated how, Owen was being watched as he was leaving. And this may be a little bit of my imagination as Ash was talking about my head canon, but as he was being watched and then started walking out, I think it's kind of interesting that the perspective pulls back and that person is now kind of jumping off of the water tower in a way. Maybe, you know, maybe Owen might have been able to see them too, because let's be very clear, as ninjas were watching him before, he was also watching them a bit too. And I think that's it's just kind of a fun little thing to sprinkle in there for myself, even if it's not 100% true.
Possibly. Let's get
Possibly.
into the next scene.
In the next scene, we get a nice establishing shot of the grandparents' house where the kids are over there hanging out. Anybody who's lives with kids, whether they're your own or someone else's, is probably familiar with the posture of them with their chins pressed up against their breasts, looking down, or their chest looking down at a screen. I thought it was really cool how Master Waylon is going back to the whole watching the watcher thing, is watching them watch their screens. And probably one of my favorite conversations and interactions happens between he and Kelly, Owen's wife. I really appreciate how, she was talking about, usually I'd get them off of these devices, make them go outside, but with everything that's going on, I believe they can use a little distraction right now. There was a really cool parallel between that very modern, very common thing that we can all you know, we can all identify with in some way. And then Master Whelan bringing it back over to, his challenges with when he brings in students, their issue is focus, and how they're, and this is fascinating how there's some parallels between them. And there was a very a little heartfelt conversation going on between Master Whelan and Kelly about, just some of the things that had happened in the past and how Master Whelan feels like he's failed Owen in some ways. I believe one of the main ways is that how this past kind of came back and now is afflicting his domestic life. And Master Whelan kind of makes a bit of a proclamation that, he won't allow that to continue. He won't allow it to happen again. We get Owen's I guess adopted father coming in, and just Owen comes in and checks in and is like, hey, did I miss anything? And then his father comes in right behind and is like, hey, thanks, I know you're just getting us set up, and thanks for having Larry coming to check on us, but if you ninjas show up, I'll charm them to death. We'll return to that part in a minute. And as everybody's saying their goodbyes and whatnot, I think is another really interesting interaction between Kelly and her partner.
Reggie.
And I'm forgetting say his name again.
Reggie.
Her partner Reggie. Her just thanking him for looking out for her. and he was a little taken back, like, thank you for what? And she was just talking about, secret kung fu spy watching over me. It's a little creepy, but it's nice. And he says, anytime. Ash, go ahead and start this off. I think this part was a little more dense with some of the context, and I'm definitely going to be talking about some things in here, but go ahead and spark it off for us.
All right. I'm not going to actually spend as much time on this. There is a lot of dense dialogue and things, but I think that makes things a little bit more obvious, so they kind of speak for themselves. But the one thing that I liked about this scene was this was kind of the putting tropes on their head, which I really love. In many ways, part of what I like about this book is I love the hero's journey. I love the chosen one storyline. I love that monomyth. I love that. And Owen represents a lot of that. Wei Fun, the master, represents the Yoda character, which I love. That's because Yoda was designed to be a old master like Wei Fun. So it's just full circular tropes playing upon tropes. I love that. But one of the things that I loved is seeing here Wei Fun have to admit, he admits to, not to Owen though, but to his wife, and through which to the audience, that Owen is the, like, not the chosen one, but he's his chosen one. Like, he's the best student he's ever had. He's you know, and why he was so great, and all these things that you don't ever hear, right? You never hear, like, you never get to hear Yoda reaffirm, like, yeah, Luke was the best, you know, like when you hear Luke talk or Yoda talk, it's always like, wow, your mind's always, you know, not paying attention. He's always criticizing him, because that's what a master does to the student. You always can be better. I'm not here to make you feel good about yourself. I'm here to make you better. But sometimes it's nice as the audience to feel that affirmation, and we can feel for Wei Fun. He's been through a lot, and he's kind of been humbled by our quote unquote hero. And I like that he kind of confesses these things that he probably would have never ever said before to Kelly. And then we see this shot where her eyes are like watering, and she's kind of taken back by what he said. And then Owen shows up. He's like, "Is all good here? Where'd it go? What'd I miss?" And she's like, "Oh, nothing." So he doesn't ever get to hear this, but she heard it kind of for him. And like I said, she's a vessel for the audience. I think the mom and the dad are just, their roles in the comic are meant to be just not comic relief, but more of that levity, the lighthearted. Because this comic does have, you know, some serious moments, and we just need to feel like, there's just fun and charm and innocence and things like that. I think the dad's always a delight to me. And I feel that Reggie is a very interesting character that hasn't really been played out yet. I don't know if he ever will. It's very interesting that he's a ninja spy thing, you know, whatever. That was a big surprise that Kirkman threw out of left field. And then it feels like this subplot is being maybe not ended, but sort of put on the back burner for a while. I don't think we're going to see Reggie. But that was my takeaways from the scene and what I liked.
Absolutely. I think, you know, some key things being called out there. And here I feel in this scene I feel a lot of room for deception. I'm not trusting a lot of the, let's say, a lot of the countenance or a lot of the body language that is being conveyed, primarily from Whelan and Reggie. I'm still not 100% certain. It feels very authentic because we rarely see the Master Lun so emotional, let's say. To your point, he is usually, you know, very stark, callous, a bit, being the, you know, quintessential sensei. But him pouring himself out to Owen's wife, it raised an eyebrow, it's raising a red flag. Along with Reggie, I don't completely trust his demeanor. I feel there's some room there for a little deception, and people still might being played. Because at the end of the day, here's the thing: Owen and Master Whelan have the oldest relationship, the most established relationship, as far as like, or let's say the first established one that we saw within the book. But with the power that Owen has and everybody trying to get their hands on it, and Master Whelan now being a part of the scorched earth, moving from the flaming fist to the scorched earth, I still just feel like a lot of people, minus Owen's family, are looking at him as an asset instead of an individual, and are playing into the things that would coerce him over to their side of the line. So I got a big, the rock sized eyebrow, the corporate eyebrow raised at at a little bit of what was going on in that scene. Anything before we move on to the next one, Ash?
No, I'm just gonna say that I'm one of those people that I tend to really trust the narrative, not because the narrative is worth trusting, but because I feel if the author is trying to deceive me, if he's trying to pull a fast one and have a twist or whatever, I discovered a long time ago that trying to find the, pick it out and see it early never actually works to make the enjoyment of the story better. Sometimes that happens. And you feel good. You're like, I knew it. I caught it. But it makes you feel good about yourself, but the story kind of suffers for it because of that. And I'm not saying that anyone that does that is bad or anything like that. I'm just saying me, I used to do that. And so now I let myself get wrapped up, and it's like, oh, you're making it look like he's trustworthy? I'm sold, like I willfully enter into that position of being deceived for the story for that sake, so that when the author wants to try to later on reveal like, guess what? And then I'm like, whoa. And it's not necessarily one way is better than the other or anything like that. I'm just telling you about myself. And so I didn't catch any of what you said when I first read it. And now I do because you pointed out to me. And I'm like, oh, maybe he's right. So that's all.
Only maybe. I could be wrong.
Yeah,
I'm questioning.
But
you
could be right.
We'll find out. I hope I'm not. Only one way to find out. You all just have to continue to take this journey with us, so we get to the bottom of it. But
now this next
from the bottom.
Oh, go ahead. I thought there was a pot. Go ahead.
No. I was gonna say from the bottom to the top because we are in the friendly skies. Everybody has boarded the plane and they are headed out to that trip to go back to. Actually, I gotta double check. Well, while I'm double checking, what was that comment that you were getting ready to make, Ash?
Oh, I was just gonna say, because this was a scene all into itself here. It's just one panel. Well, and it leads into the next scene. But I just wanted to do this. If you remember the last issue, which has been like a month, there was a similar scene, but it was with the Flaming Fist clan as they were leaving after the fight and flying back to China. And they were all crouched in the plane, and there was that scene. This kind of echoed that, and I really liked that. I love when things echo each other. So I just wanted to make that comment because it just, like I said, it's just an opener that leads into the actual airline scene that follows.
Oh, absolutely. No, and that was one of the first things that stepped out to me. Again, that continuity, that consistency. Sam Nee didn't have to do it this way again. Very intentional, very intentional. How can you not? How can you not be invested when people are putting this much attention to detail into things? But everybody's boarded up. They are headed to the Scorched Earth clan stronghold. Of course, Owen is a little dubious about this, because his first introduction to the Scorched Earth clan is A, they are the sworn enemy of the Temple of the Flaming Fist, and B, you got a little bit of family origin over there, bud. So, he's just unsure, as any of us would be. He's pulled from one direction to the next. Master Whelan straight up asked him, "Do you trust me?" And I like how he said, "When you ask like that, less and less." So anyway, he kind of leaves the seat, goes over by his family, and right as he was about to go over, or excuse me, he had just left from Master Whelan. He was actually heading to the lavatory. I do like how it is lavatory on there in the panel and not just a bathroom. But as soon as he is about to get in there, kathunk, sword almost to the face. We got that person that was following them, the lady that was hanging from a sword inside of their home because Owen ran her through. She's on the plane, and we got a full-on fight in there. I was gonna sing everybody was kung fu fighting, but really there was only two people that were kung fu fighting. Now we get some interesting information. The lady is saying, I've stared into the abyss and I've returned from the darkness with forbidden knowledge, known only to my kind. I am the serpent's omen. And if this world is to evolve to its next level, the firepower must be destroyed. It was very important that I read that part because that is big, big, big. One of the biggest reveals of the book, that we have this introduction to this new additional power, called known as the abyss, and it being able to change people into what is called the serpent's omen. We'll find out later if there is just one or if there are more. But as people are looking on, watching Owen, kind of hold this sword wedged right between them, and the lady is giving him the option: hey, you can surrender and keep your life, or you can die. And Owen says, "Up, there's a third option," and he pulls the emergency exit thing, and they just go flying out of the plane. And that is where we end with Owen and the serpent's omen. Ooh, trying to say in that 3 times fast. I'm not going to do it. Falling out of the plane. Ash, you gotta talk to me, man, because I didn't know how this was going to end, but in the spirit of WandaVision, and no spoilers here, but you didn't see that coming?
Did not see us coming. And was I the only one who was wondering where these snakes on this mother effing plane came from?
That's good. That's a good reference right there.
I don't know if Kirkman did that intentionally, but I have to believe that he did.
He had to. He had to.
Yeah, this was like, wait a second. This is it. Like he's free falling out of a plane without a parachute, and that is a cliffhanger of cliffhangers. We know that he can throw fireballs, but how does he survive a plane? Like, how are you going to get out of this? Yeah, I really like this scene. It starts off, it's just simple enough. Here we get back to the themes of trust that you open my eyes to, and you make me start going, oh man, can I not trust you now? Because before I'm like, I'm sold. Now I'm just like, I don't know if I can trust you. But I really like Wei Lun, and I was brokenhearted when Wei Lun had betrayed him before, and he was the bad guy, and I was like, no. And then he was like, oh, okay, this is actually not everything as it seems. Okay, I'm back. And then now I'm like, no, wait, no, don't do it to me, Kirkman. I liked the panels just above the lavatory one, where you see he's getting up to his seat. You can see the girl sitting in the back. But I love the way that Sam Nee drew it, just very nondescript. Just, I didn't catch it the first time. So what I noticed when I was reading it, it's like he's getting up, he's going to the lavatory, and that middle panel where he sees his wife, like the camera is kind of like pointing through, and you can see the wife looking at him like she's worried about something. And I'm like, oh, what's going on with this? And he closes the lavatory, and then he pops back out presumably when he's done doing his business. She's ready to assassinate him. And then I was like, whoa, where'd she come from? And so I flipped back the page, and I'm like, oh, she was there, and I didn't see it, because I love when you can do that, when you can put things right in front of me, but I don't see it. Yep. And just like you said, I love this whole abyss thing. I don't know if that's what it's actually going to be called, but the serpent's omen, I guess, is whatever it is. I love mythos. So when you start adding to the mythos, I'm hooked, especially if I already like what you're doing. So now I'm like, oh, there's more to the mythos. Keep me sign 'em. Take my money, Kirkman. Take my money. And he's got great action shots, great beats. When I read this comic, on my mind, you get the illustrations, and you see what's going on, but my mind is filling in. Like I'm watching this, or I'm looking at this comic, in my mind a movie is going on. In between these panels, I'm hearing the voice of these characters, and this is just a great kind of a set piece, a great cliffhanger of how comics should be. You should be like, what? I need the next issue now,
Right.
And you do with this book. What are your final thoughts?
You hit on many of them. Again, hiding things in plain sight. You do that to me, I'm like, oh, you dirty rotten scoundrel, you, and I love you for it. So cool to see that that character right there in the double page splash, far back in the left corner, like the smallest illustration of a character to where you still see like their eyes or a hint of their eyes. Just that's true artistic storytelling. Dang, just love that. Mythos, you said it. Let's add an additional level onto this thing. Let me know that this might not be such a short series. We might be able to ride this horse far beyond the sunset into another one, because we have a whole another level of things to deal with. In addition to the firepower, we've got the abyss, and that is like the sworn enemy thing. Does give me the hand and who's the sworn enemy of the hand again? The
Oh man, isn't it?
plan that stick is from the cast. Is that what it is? The
I
cast.
can't remember. I know Stick and Stone, but I don't remember what they're from.
Yeah. But anyway, it kind of gave me some of those vibes, like the hand, and I believe it is the cast. They have their own rivalry going, so there's that whole thing. I bet Owen's just like, oh great, another thing that I never gave a damn about that I'm stuck in the middle of. So there goes that. Owen's just like, I really just want to go home and have a home cooked meal and like lay in bed with my wife in peace.
Right?
Now I got to deal with this damn thing called the abyss. Ugh.
Yeah, there was a great panel that I think we might have skipped over. That was during the Larry scene, where he says to him, he's like, "You're a superhero, for Pete's sake." And then we see him just kind of like wave Larry away. He's like, "Larry, I'm not a superhero." And you can just see the expression on his face. He's like, I have no interest in these things. I just want to barbecue with my kids. Like, he's just,
right.
Larry's like, "You're a superhero." He's like, oh, and it's to your point exactly. Like, he's just like, what am I in the middle of now? I love it.
So good, man. So good. But yeah, there we are. Finally they're falling out of the plane, and yeah, I mean, don't even that is such, I mean, that's not even what do you call it? That's not a cliffhanger. Is that a plane hanger? I don't know. But it's something. But I don't and now all of a sudden it went from kung fu and everything to drop zone with Wesley Snipes. I don't know how he's gonna get out of this. I can't even begin to theorize. I do know that is kind of part of the segment that we throw out of there. Should you and me spend 2 minutes talking about that and let the chat throw in their last thoughts, Ash?
Yeah, we can do that if you like. I'm not sure how much more I have to say, so you'll have to kind of fuel my thoughts here. So
absolutely,
I
can start off. This is easy. He's absolutely going to catch her, throw her under his feet, do constant fireballs from the back of his hands with his arms kind of behind his back, and he is going to surf the serpent omen until he gets to solid ground. That's what I'm starting off.
Wow. That's that'd be pretty crazy. I'm wondering if the serpent's omen person, that really is really hard to say.
Yeah.
If they have some sort of ability that will let them save themselves, that Owen will then have to utilize, by clinging onto him or something so that he can survive. Because the only other thing I can think of is that he somehow uses his fire ability to blunt his fall, I guess I could see that happening. I don't know how satisfactory that would be. It would almost, I don't know if I would be super satisfied with it, but also I feel like that would just be way too obvious. Like Kirkman just like, oh, like, I don't know. So
right.
I'm kind of discounting that that's going to happen because it seems too obvious.
Too on the nose.
And it's just too like, right. And so I think Kirkman has something else up his sleeve, and that's what makes me go, wow, what else could it be? But I love this. This is the most over the top thing that's happened I guess other than throwing fire from your hands, but it then in the comic to date, falling from a plane, like how do you survive this? Neither, I mean, I guess theoretically the woman could have a parachute like strapped under her hoodie that she was going to use, like she was going to jump out all along, because I mean she just in her I have to assume her plan was to murder Owen and then what, land with the plane and get arrested, like probably like so maybe she does have a parachute or something she's going to use. Owen sees it and have to like struggle, and he grabs her and knocks her out, or somehow they have a fight in the air. He knocks her out, then like clings on and uses her parachute to descend. That would be something that we didn't foresee, except we just foresaw it now. But we don't know if that's going to happen. Yeah, I don't know. And the serpents thing, like, it's got to be part of the Flaming Fist. Whoa, could serpents omen be related to dragon? Because oftentimes dragons are related to serpents, and
right, like kind of part serpent, part bird, or part serpent, part fowl, so to speak. Like they
yeah,
are
like,
kind of a combination of both.
yeah, especially like Asian dragons, or they're more serpentine than their Western cousins, which are more big bestial lizard things. So I'm wondering, because remember we were theorizing about the dragon before, and what's the dragon got to do? And the Flaming Fist has the whole room with the dragon. And now we've got this new serpent's omen thing. Is it related?
Could be, man. And we are getting into that territory where I'll say this after the bright ideas we both had. I'm glad Robert Kirkman, master of comic book writing and storytelling, is writing this and not me and you. Because there is no way that pun intended, I'm really punny tonight, and I'm not going to apologize for it. There's no way I'd be able to land. You're right. There's no way I'd be able to land this plane.
Nailed it.
There you go. That's shout out to Joe Corallo with his brother being a drummer
Nice.
comment.
Dude, two puns in one sentence.
Oh, don't get me going.
I love puns. I'm so bad at them. So many people, they cringe at puns, and I'm like, I'm so bad at them, and I wish I could do them. So I appreciate good puns. I'm like, oh, that's so good. I couldn't think of it.
Well, stick around, kid. I'll take you places with my puns. But yeah, I can't say. I mean, that's the only thing I think you might have grabbed. The best thing is that in addition to this new Serpent's Omen, there's probably some additional abilities that have yet to manifest in front of our eyes on the panel. So that is the wild card that we have there. Shout out to the chat and getting some interactions. We got a Zach Richmond showing up saying I'm uber late, but that's latest issue of Firepower was legit. And I'm glad you felt like that too. I did read some reviews about it before I actually got around to reading it, and I saw that some people were not as excited about it as we were. I have gotten to the point where I don't let that affect me, and I can wipe the slate clean. So I did not feel the way that those people felt. Ash doesn't either, and neither does Zach. So that's good to know. Maranya in the chat says, very cinematic quality in these panels. You can feel the action and hear the effects without tacky lettering in the panels. No lies detected in Maranya. Again, and I know we talk about Kirkman, and Kirkman has a name, and, The Walking Dead and Invincible, and, every Oblivion song, and, every other title from Kirkman that you want to throw out that are so close to indie comic lovers' hearts. But Chris mother flipping Samney is really on his job. And I do enjoy, we've talked about it before, but I do enjoy how Robert Kirkman, with no ego that I see at all, putting himself to the side when necessary and letting Chris Samney, take the wheel, so to speak. It's pretty damn awesome. Joe Corallo chiming in. Here's a horrible pun that will make you regret puns that I saw earlier from my friend B. Why is Catwoman like Batman's sidekick? Oh no, why is Catwoman like Batman's sidekick? Because when she's stealing stuff, she's a Robin.
That was a groaner, but it's still funny. Even when they're groaners, they're funny.
Uh, oh man, that one was below the belt. Ouch. Especially because I'm reading through Darwin Cook's Selena's Big Score right now. So I'm definitely Joe. I'm gonna have to read a few more pages of that and wash that pun out of my mouth. But yeah, hey, terrible or great, all puns are welcomed. We'll put them on the table. Me and Ash will judge them. We are professional pun judgers on top of indie comic lovers. Talking about indie comic love, East to West is my favorite series of all time.
Yeah. As much as
Oh, wow.
we're having fun when you go over schedule. We're pushing time now. So,
Mhm.
I would talk about firepower all day, but we got a big book to get through. So, we're going to move on to East of West. Come join us. I hope you guys have been reading along. We're on volume 6. This is covering issues 25 through 29. And for this format, we're going to go issue by issue, not into the depth that we did Firepower. Before you're like, oh my God, we're going to be here all night. It won't be. Firepower is like our main thing, so we really get in the discussion. This will be a quicker format on a per issue basis. We're going to get a quick synopsis of each issue from our boy Skip here, who's way better at this than me. And then we're going to just talk about the issue kind of the same way we talked about each scene from the previous, or from Firepower book. We'll talk about the whole issue, what we liked, what we didn't like. Let you guys chime in. If you have anything to say, please add it in the comments. We love to hear if you guys have a different viewpoint than our own, or just something that particularly stood out to you for whatever reasons. That's great. And without further ado, I will let Skip get us off on issue 25.
Issue 25, jumping right in. We get a shot of the Endless Nation, the city, the machine city of the Endless Nation. Narsima is deep in sleep and being summoned by Ninarthet. I'm killing that name, but essentially, the one of the gods in the afterlife, so to speak, or the spirits of the people of the Endless Nation, and it is still wearing Cheveo's body, and he's basically beckoning him, telling him, come and pay. You know, you owe a debt. So he goes exactly where he shouldn't go, to Het the Sea of Bones, out into the Badlands, the Forbidden Land, and confronts Nernathet, and he's basically mocking him and just telling him, about how he failed his people, and he's telling him he's not supposed to go to the Badlands, and how can I find someone, to basically pay the debt, or to be the leader that's supposed to be for my people. And as Nanothet points to the side, here goes Wolf, and he is back, and he just might be that person taking over that spot. Flash forward, we got Death returning to the Junction, the bar that has the tracker who can find things. As we know, Death was not able to locate his son, got really close but couldn't quite get there. He just goes right back to how he owes him a debt, so he's going to help him find his son. And Death, of course, gets to paint the bar of the Junction red yet again, and again it's just telling them, like, all right, hey, I killed all these guys again. You are going to work for me. You are going to find my son. I don't owe you anything. You still owe me, and your debt is not even close to being paid. We go back to the Sea of Bones. We got Wolf talking to Narsima, and they have that conversation again about the ethereal realm, the message, who is supposed to take what spot. And Wolf is kind of basically letting Narsima know that, it is me that is supposed to be taking over for the nation. I am the chosen in that right. And I know you're having a tough time with all of this, and you don't see me as I will be. You only see me as I was before and as I am now, but I am here to help save our people. And Narsima, you can see, he's, not fully on board for that, but I think he knows his days are numbered in that regard. And then we got the Southern Gate, and we flash back over to one of my favorite characters, Archibald, talking to his niece, who is his right hand person, and she's kind of, making negative remarks about the people outside, kind of the pilgrims who are making the journey to Armistice, and Archibald's just letting her know, like, yeah, I do believe in the message, but I kind of live it out in my own way, and everybody kind of has their own role. I'm here to play mine, but I'm gonna play mine with the twist. And don't look down on these people because ultimately people are looking for certain things to be ruled. Everybody got their part to play. Some people are miscast, but I know my role, and I'm gonna play it to the T. And just as they get to the city where Orion has beckoned everybody, they go inside, and we get to see who else will be joining them for this kind of new meeting. Ash, out of issue 25, what were your thoughts on it?
Oh boy. It's funny the way Kirkman writes. Every
Hickman, the other men.
Sorry, I always mix those two names up, like Scott Snyder and
Me
Zack
too.
Snyder. Kirkman and Hickman. The way Hickman writes, he kind of always seems to know where the trade is going to be, because each trade kind of feels like it follows a similar, I don't want to say pattern, but a similar flow, where it picks up kind of slow. I'm not real sure where it's going, but by the time I get to that 5th issue, I'm like, whoa. Some interesting things here that it's kind of like world building, which I'm big on. I love the mythology. I love that this Sea of Bones is a place that's told like the Endless Nation doesn't go there because no one can step foot. It's on hallowed ground. And Narsima, as before in the previous issue says, I never plan on like stepping on the ground, or I forget exactly what he said, because he has a hover bike. So, that's how he did it. So this time he flies out again on his bike, but this guy whose name I can't pronounce, the demon guy.
Ninarthet or whatever.
Yeah, let's call him the demon guy. He stomps his foot down and causes something to happen and crashes the bike, to which point Narsima is now violated one of the 3 great oaths of the nation. But he's just, emotional and so forth. And this is where Wolf shows up. There's something about this Wolf character that I just like, and I don't know what it is, but I like that Narsima knows, or seems to give off the impression that he knows he's kind of effed up. He knows his days are numbered, but not just in a sense like, oh, he's going to die, but his days are numbered in the sense that he's failing, like he's not doing what he should be doing, and he's kind of going to be responsible for his own demise. And he's not competent for the role. Like and Wolf kind of will be putting him in his place. But we get this scene here with Death that I really liked. We get a guy who at the bar who's trying to weasel his way out of death, and from a thematic standpoint, I just loved it. It's human nature and instinct, I think, to try to weasel our way out of a bad circumstance. If we're caught, when your hand's caught in the cookie jar, I was getting a cookie for you. Like you're trying to weasel your way out of the situation. This guy, he's a little slippery tongue. He's trying to like, oh no, Dad, you don't understand. I'm doing this and that. And then when Death really confronts him and it's like, oh, time's up, he's like, you think these patrons are here because they're my like I paid them, they're mercenaries, and he feels like he's got the one up, and then Death just, like you said, paints the place red. And this 2-page spread, you don't have to read any single word balloon. You can just look at these 2 pages and you know exactly what's happened. Just the sights of the eyes and everything. And when I look at this 2-page, just 2 pages right here that's on the screen, I'm reminded more than ever at just how much Hickman and Nick Dragotta together have found a way to bring us an American manga in a way. Like, it's not manga. I know the dweebs are going to be like, that's not manga. It's not. I know. No. But taking the essence of what manga does, what's so great about it, taking the essence of American comics that Hickman is so great at, marrying them together. If America did do its own manga, I feel like this would be it. I and it just this if of anything, if this issue, especially these 2 pages, just made me go, oh yeah, this is, they nailed the visuals of it, and not just because they made it look stylized, like, oh look, they use speed lines like manga does. It's how they consider visualizing Western and Eastern ideas on how to frame a shot, how to visually tell the story, are just different. It goes beyond just aesthetics. But I think you either will get that or you won't. If you're not a manga person, you're probably like, whatever, Ash, I don't care what you're saying, but that's fine. I'll move on. Archibald's one of my favorite characters. He's such a schemer. I just enjoy watching him, just listening to him every time. Just whatever you got to say, Archibald, I'm glued, because it's just always interesting and it's always compelling. And this new assistant of his, she's kind of hot shit, but not completely still. And there's always people, everyone in this book always, no matter how awesome they are, has like their Achilles heel. Like, no one's perfect, which is a theme of humanity. We say that all the time, like, no one's perfect. And that's like something here, like the ego gets in the way of almost everyone in these books. It's just, and like the more hot shit you are, the more disastrously I expect you to fall. And then this last page of just seeing, I forget what the big demon thing is that's living in
Ryan, or Ezra Ryan. I forget what the demon thing's name is.
Yeah, so seeing that to come together, you're like, oh, what's going on? And it's explained more, obviously, in the next issue. Did I miss anything?
Indeed. What'd you say?
Did I miss anything?
Nah, yeah, you covered it all. That was it.
All right.
And it just continues. It kind of blossoms a little bit more in issue 26. In issue 26, we get a little bit of dialogue just talking about how this was kind of like the perfect crossing, of the opportunity for fate and free will, regarding the message and the apocalypse, and how at that time, it was common men seeking nothing but justice, but they were gathered together one last time as the pilgrims have made the pilgrimage there. It was the final meeting of the chosen, so this marks the last time that they will be together. And it was talking about all of which was witnessed by the pilgrims of the message, true believers who would soon become the last army of the final age. It was the moment of pure potential, as all at once there was everything to gain and everything to lose. But it was the breaking of nations and the birth of new ones. All showing Archibald and his niece / his assistant walking in, ships flying off, and it really just sets the table. As we know, Calamity is on on track, full steam ahead to punch the chosen right in the kisser. But we are back at the junction. We go a little deeper and picking up where Death left off with the tracker, and again, Death is just letting him know, like, again, don't talk to me about payment and who owes what, because you are essentially forever indebted to me, and my debt should have been paid. Your debt should have been paid a long time ago. So the tracker is letting him know, I'm not able. I wasn't able to find your son, and our tracking system works two ways. Either our information will already be on there, or we can queue information up to people, and people in the know or close to the information that you're trying to find out can, try to offer up that information as they seek it. So the tracker tries to puts out the message, so to speak, and 4 people come up. I do want to point something out. We got One-Eyed Wyatt, we got Ursula Locke, we got Billy Blackgun, and we have a creature who looks like Mech, and they named that one Psalm 137. If you are engaged in this story and remember Death's son's name, I highly advise people to go and read Psalm 137. Whether you're a believer or not, just read it as something in addition to this book. It is very telling, and I continue to say, I don't know if Jonathan Hickman is a believer or not, but he's definitely a person who has knowledge of the Bible, because he pulls very specific parts out that most people with the surface level knowledge would not be able to pull out, and it did actually add to the story. And it's a really short chapter. Continuing on, the tracker was just letting them know there ain't much talent, but these are the people that popped up, and I can go ahead and hire them, contract them to find your son. Death smells something going on, pulls his Pell Rider out on him and points it right in his face. And he's like, I don't trust you. There's something that you're up to. What's going on? And right as Death is saying that to him, and the tracker's trying to tell him, why would I do that? I want you gone. I want you to find yourself and be out of my life. The eyeball, the speaking eyeball, one of the speaking eyeballs pops out of the covering and tells the truth and lets Death know that the tracker is lying. That's things aren't what he seems. He set Death up, and those people are actually trying to willing to lie to Death to lure him in and kill him, or even kill his son if they find him first. The eye jumps out, and Death says, "Oh, about that debt, now we're square." Shoots the tracker right in the face. Has a conversation with the eye. The eye lets him know, "Hey, I'll help you. Don't worry about me. You can trust me." Death wants to put a bullet in him or squish him with his heel, but ends up looking at him as an asset and just tells him, just shut up and only speak when you're spoken to, and I'll take you along for the ride. We jump back over to the Southern Gate, and this kind of replays a little bit of Madam President LeVay walking from the White Tower through everybody and then to her ship. And she's again just speaking down on the people and on the mob that's angry with how she's been running the nation and their lack of resources. They get inside of they skip the journey and get right inside of the or actually that was the pilgrims, and she didn't want the pilgrims to touch them, but they get inside of the meeting, and Doma still has her weapon raised, and there's just a lot of mistrust amongst everybody. Madame LeVay is speaking negatively to Archibald. Archibald's talking crap back to her, but we get a little flash back letting us know that since Doma is in the pocket, especially of the House of Mao, who has a pact with the Endless Nation, she contacted both of those parties after she went and she picked up the gold from John Freeman, and she was saying, "Hey, should I just bring the gold to you? What should I do?" They let her know, no, take a portion of the gold to her, but not all of it, and that'll make Madam President LeVay even more desperate and put her in a worse place. And right as all the tension is going on, the House of Mal walks in. More tension, weapons raised, everything going around. A little beacon gets thrown out. We get a little Princess Leia type, please Obi-Wan, you're our only hope type hologram message coming from Mal. Again, just kind of putting everybody on their heels, letting them know that they're all on notice. She wasn't going to be there herself. And then we get another group coming through. Bam! Finally, the vizier of the King of New Orleans announces that Crown Prince John Freeman has arrived. He comes into the room. Everybody's looking over at him. Ezra says, "Welcome, chosen." As everybody's looking around, showing their own emotions, John Freeman notices Wolf is in the room. And this is the first time Wolf has attended a meeting of the chosen. He was with Death all those other times. He was with Death and Crow. And they look at each other, and we know that there's a backstory with them being raised together by Cheveo, John Freeman being trained by Cheveo to hunt. And sure enough, they embrace each other and they call each other brothers. They begin talking. Wolf kind of explains a little bit more about why he's there. And ultimately, Wolf lets him know things are a little bit more complicated as he looks over at Crow because they're in a relationship. And while it seems like things are kind of calming down a little bit, the tension's starting to dissipate a bit. John Freeman, being the gunslinger that he is, whips out his pistol, points in a direction, and that direction that we look over to, it is Bell Solomon, who is another one of the chosen, and Thomas, the ranger, with his trusty dog, and it is about to go down.
Oh,
Ash, yeah,
this
tell
is
me
where
about it.
it's like, oh yeah, this was a fascinating issue. Like I said, I love world building, but not just for world building's sake. I mean, Hickman, you always feel like there's a plan when you're reading these books, like it's going somewhere. And it doesn't feel like he's just randomly grabbing out of the Lego bucket and just building on top of stuff. Like he's more like just peeling away the layers that were there so you can actually see. I love these characters. They're all despicable, but I just love to despise them. Like the Madam President. And now I know that her Doma, her assistant, is like betraying her, but she's still like seeing her in a different light. It's fascinating. I just enjoy everything about this book as far as that aspect goes. If you're a person that liked the Game of Thrones TV series, and I'm not here to talk about whether you got upset because of how it ended or whatever, but just at any point of the Game of Thrones series that you liked it, when it was at its best, and the things that you liked best about it, I'm going to guess chances are that the political intrigue and all the different houses playing off each other, the whole concept of a Game of Thrones, this book has the similar elements where all these houses are playing off of each other in a similar way. And they're mostly all just terrible people, just like in Game of Thrones. But you just find yourself enjoying it because it's okay to root for bad guys when they're against other bad guys. Like you're just watching them like self-destruct and just go down this terrible path. And it's like a train wreck, but it's in this, like it's in the most delicious way possible. I don't know how to describe it any other way than that. And the machinations of how things are going down. Some of these characters are so great. You just know like all of these things are coming to a head and how they're going to meet. You're just wondering how it's going to play out. We saw in previous issues some flashback scenes with John Freeman and Wolf, and we knew that they were kind of maybe not raised together, but a portion of their life. And we know that John Freeman called Wolf his brother, and because he explains even to his fiance like there's no one like closer to him. And so I knew at some point they were going to see each other again, because it felt like that. It felt like Hickman was foreshadowing. And sure enough, we get to this point now where they are, and apparently John still feels the same that he did before. Okay, that's not changed. But now I'm left with wondering, because I know John Freeman's kind of a terrible person. I'm kind of hoping that Wolf isn't, and but I don't know where it's going to go. And I really like the Ranger. And it's all this is just setting up for the conflicts to come. And you just, like I said, you just know everything is going to collide. Everything is on an inbound trajectory towards the center where everyone's going to collide together. And some of these characters you like again, some of them you just love to hate. The Ranger is one of my favorites. I love his dog. I keep saying that. And we know Hickman's already brilliantly set up how badass Freeman is. Like, just time and time again, Hickman is used as the narrative to establish you don't want to mess with this guy in a fight. Like, even his brothers, like, mess with him. And he's just like, nope, that was a stupid move. But the Ranger's taken on death and lived to tell the tale. So he's no slouch. And you just don't know how it's all building. It's just, it's intense. I think if you're reading it, if you're not reading it, man, you're missing out.
Absolutely. So much to eat off of the plate of the book that is East of West. I will continue. We'll go on. We are moving towards where we are on number 27. 27, of course, picks up right where we left off. Tension in the room. Ezra Orion basically spending time, again, just, reiterating, hey, this is a meeting of providence, so to speak. So everyone will respect each other in the room. While we are in the room, we will conduct the business of the message. How all of that plays out when y'all leave is up to you. He is elevating the pilgrims as they are kind of coming into the holes and the big kind of cave type parts that are inside of the room. It almost reminds me of the Matrix. What was it, Revolution, when like they were in Zion and
Yeah,
there was people like on the floor and like in the holes in the walls and all of that
very
stuff.
much.
So this scene is kind of set up like that. um Ezra again is just letting them know all that is left to do now is what you were born to do. A lot of conversations about people respecting the message. Ezra reminding everyone that I am the living message. I ate the message. I have become the message, and now the message has changed. Of course, people hate change, so a lot of people are pushing back against it in their own way. Bell Solomon, making his desires known. Of course, John Freeman reminding him that he's going to put a bullet in him for for some of the other things that he did. And then Wolf lets him know that along with Bell Solomon is the Ranger, and the Ranger is the man who had killed Cheveo with the sniper right before death was trying to get some of the answers out of him. Of course, that puts John Freeman in a certain position, so he's got some investment there, and also killing him. As they're having all of those discussions, I do want to highlight one particular conversation, some of my favorite dialogue, and I'll move on. Uh, after Wolf told him that, John Freeman says, "Oh, is that right? You're the guy." And and the Ranger says, "I am justice. Point that gun my way, Prince, and I'll walk you home." And John Freeman says, "I like you. You've got spirit." And the Ranger says, "Listen to you, speaking of spirits like the soon to be departed. It's fitting as you're on my list." Kind of also remind me of Chris Jericho. You just made the list. I don't know. I just love that part of the book. Cheveo manifesting within Bell Solomon. Um, just kind of letting him know in a odd way that he's aroused, that everybody's in the room, and certain people that hadn't been together are together again. And ultimately, Ezra kind of gives everybody their last marching orders. Everybody gets their scrolls. Archibald really, really testing Ezra, as that's what Archibald does, right? He's a button pusher. Even if there ain't a button there, he'll make one and then he'll push it.
Yep.
So he's pushing all those buttons, trying to kind of push Ezra over the edge. And Ezra, we can just see, is consumed with this mission that he is on, with him being the message and making sure he sees it through. And he's saying everybody will fall in line, trying to wrangle in the crowd, trying to calm everybody, not calm everybody down, so to speak, but bring them down to a level where they realize they need to follow what he's saying. And right as he is at the height of, really making a charge and commanding everybody in the room, we get one of my favorite panels that's always shows up. Blam, blam, blam. The Ranger puts a few rounds into Ezra, and as Ezra is not quite succumbing to his wounds, but more so turning into something additional with tentacles coming out of him. We get the Ranger throwing a big belt of grenades at him, all the pins pulled out right in front of the beast and Ezra. Bam. Ezra is blown into bits. Everybody is dealing with the rubble. Everybody's kind of making their way out, and all of a sudden, the pilgrims, the army of fate, the last army, they start charging in at right towards Bell Solomon and the Ranger as well. They go to making a great escape. Just craziness ensues. The people are bum rushing all of the chosen, and a big fight breaks out. Awesome splash pages and scenes and whatnot. um Archibald, his niece, gets taken hostage. He cloaks himself in the clothes of the pilgrims, uh gets her out of there, gives her one of the robes, points at the rest of the chosen, has everybody go after them, and then they make their escape. John Freeman, naturally, he's the gunslinger, shoots his way out. He, Wolf, and Crow, along with the Vizier, making their way to the ship. Narsima of the Endless Nation, not as fortunate as some of the rest of the people trying to make their way out. Doma jumps in the ship with the rest of them. People start flying off, and Ezra is transforming into something wholly else. It is very odd. And then Wolf and Crow are still there, and they turn into huge versions of themselves and begin to fight the beast that was attached to Ezra, and they put him down or make enough separation And Narsima does make an escape, flying on the wings of the Crow, as the ship that has John Freeman and some others get out of there as well. And that is the end of 27. Ash, we got some
Wow.
action, baby.
This might have been my favorite episode or issue of the 5. One thing that I'm recalling now or thinking about as you went through the issue again is just how great Hickman is at letting pressure build and then releasing it. And he doesn't just throw action out for action's sake. It will build, and it will build, and it will build. And you as a reader will start getting to the point where you're like begging for it to release. Like, no, like what's gonna happen? Like something's gotta happen. Like this can't keep going. Like, and you're just that anticipation, and then maybe let's a little build a little more, and then boom. And this issue for me felt a lot like that. It was a lot of just, I hate to be beating a dead horse, but the Game of Thrones experience of a lot of talking and scheming and plotting and planning and backstabbing, and but just over and over to keep going. And when I say like over and over, you hear that tone of my voice, I don't mean like, oh, I'm tired of it, but like just in a way it was like going and going, and you're like, well, is anything actually going to happen? Is it going to be a lot of people talking? You get the excellent buildup. That those 4 panels that you described were some of the like biggest pressure builds of this issue, and I just loved the dialogue. And John just looks at him and says, "You're the guy, I am justice. Point that gun in my face and I'll walk you home. I like you. You got spirit. Listen to you. Speaking of spirit." Again, it's hard to read. I'm sorry, I got small. Speaking of spirits like the soon-to-be departed, it's fitting as you're on my list, which it's kind of redundant since you kind of read that already. But I just loved that tension of like 2 prize fighters who you watch their careers, build and build, and you're just like, are these guys ever going to fight? And like now they are, and you're just like, oh my God, what's going to happen? But does Hickman just give it to you? Nope. Got to keep going. And we see more plotting and scheming, and then we see Ezra, he's just losing it. And you're right, that analogy of the button pushing and creating buttons, he just pushes Ezra over the edge, and he just goes ballistic. And I love this line where he's just like, at the end, he's like, and you'll fall in line, and blam, 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 blam. That's 2. And now you have been born again in the church of the almighty bullet. Did you see that coming? It's just like, it was so badass. And again, it's like that pressure release. You're just like, you knew something was going to happen, and it does. But instantly it comes back, and, he's laughing. And like you say, he's transformed, and he's like, I am no longer just flesh and bone. I am more. The word cannot be undone by a man with a gun. Understood. He just throws in a belt of grenades. Ping, ping, ping. Like pulls all the pins. I just love that law. Understood. No bullets. Fine. Here you go. Boom. Blows him up. And then
so good.
Ezra gets his final last thing in where he's just like, coughing and up blood or whatever. He says, I judge them pure, all of them. And that's where the demon gets unleashed, and everyone's just like, kill, kill, kill. And that's when it's time to get out of here. All hell breaks loose. Comixology failing me again. You illustrated some of these scenes. There's no real reason to recap them, but just chaos. Everything ensuing. And if you're just a casual person flipping through this book, you see that there's action going on, but the meaning of the action, of what everything is meaning, what's led up to this point, makes all of this so much more intense. I love everyone's trying to get on the ship, and we see what's his name? The Endless Nation chief. He's held back. And Doma's just like, whatever, she makes. That was another part I think you might have skipped over, because he kind of threatens her, says something, um, and he's left behind, and she just says, "Sorry, I find no value in keeping things that own me intact. I hope I hope it hurts." Just like, because he's like basically plays her in another previous scene about like, we own you, so you're gonna do our bidding, and now when it comes time that he needs her help, guess what? She's not there for them. All the scheming always bites you in the ass. Just, but Crow understands that there's a bigger thing or not Crow, sorry, Wolf, and so he needs to go back. He can't let the chief die. And you get a really touching moment with Crow. I like Crow. These two characters are really cool to me. And he goes back into wolf form, and it's freaking on. It's like kaiju battle. You're like, Jesus, how far is this book gonna go? And you see the masses. I mean, look at this last page here, where the crow flies away with the Indian chief that Wolf needed to save. Crow had to leave her lover behind. Like, just some interesting concepts, like what's going on, and you think about these characters, and like, wow, everyone's so evil, but then you see people sacrificing to do things, and like sacrifice for greater goods is generally not like an evil behavior. But this cave where Buer, or whatever the demon's name is that's fighting, and just look at them legions of people. I mean, it's just tens of thousands of people just marching on, trying to kill whoever's left. They're just crazed zealots. Did I miss anything?
No, you hit it all, and that's, we went from kind of things kind of doubling over into issues, and kind of slowly unraveling again, building that tension. To in this one, there was so much complexity between the relationships and and the action and everything. It's like, if people felt like the first two issues were slow by any means, I mean, this one, I don't know if you had a cup big enough, to catch everything that Hickman was kind of pouring in there, but Ash definitely put a bucket underneath that thing. Got this book on tap. Let's finish up 28, 29, and we were headed home. So we got Death. He is out and about, still on the track for his son, speaking to the eye, getting some information from it. These parts, I'm kind of gonna be a little more general with what's going on and let Ash kind of dig into the details. As he's squeezing the eye, we get some additional abilities, and the eye is able to not only speak but also show him some of the area and whatnot, that kind of almost revealing a little bit of what the tracker's abilities were, but in a not as detailed way, but still very, very much more organic. And the name of that place was Ahab's Pass. So as we go to Ahab's Pass, which is obviously like a very big canyon area with the pass through, we get we get Psalm 137, which is one of the trackers, stops down, and there's the other four trackers convening down there. They're all speaking and talking about what info they do have, what intel they've gotten so far, and all in all, what we get is Wyatt kind of deciding that this may not be worth the money and worth the pay for him. And as he's kind of letting everybody else know how he feels, and he's kind of not getting those feelings reciprocated, someone puts a bullet right inside of him. And we kind of find out that the other three are a little bit more dedicated to the job, and even beyond that, possibly to the message, than Wyatt is. We jump over to Babylon, because it's been a while since we've seen Babylon. And Babylon and Balloon. Babylon thinks that he is staring into the face of some odd animal, but really it's kind of like this cute looking boar, and they're playing around. And we get more of the deception that's going on. Balloon is not purely telling, obviously Babylon what's going on, and he's trying to teach him more of those lessons to turn him into the Beast 666. We go over to New Shanghai, and within their Mao, some of her legion are reporting back to her on what is going on, And basically, some of what happened at the meeting of the chosen, she pulls out the trinket that Death gave her before he left, and he said, if you speak to it, then I'll be able to hear you, but it doesn't work two ways. So she starts to let him know just some of her feelings and fears of what she's going to have to do and take things to the next level. She still doubts that Death will be able to bring everything back, bring Babylon back in time for things to have a happy ending. We get Death hot on the trail again, just kind of searching and searching, getting closer to Ahab's pass, getting closer to the location of where Babylon would be. It's still a big area, so you have to do a lot of searching to track him down. And finally, as Babylon is walking through there, they find a place to kind of set up camp because it's getting dark. And he lights a fire. And in the midst of him lighting a fire, we flash back to the trackers. They had made mention that one of the ways to find out how soon someone had been at a certain location is to check the fire that they made, check the pit. And in this case, they don't even have to check the pit because from the distance, they can see the fire burning where Babylon is. And that is where we end off on issue number 28. Ash, what'd you pull from that one?
This was a pretty straightforward issue. So there's not really as much depth to go on, I don't think, in the greater scheme of things. I like Death. Death has really grown on me as a character because just considering what he is, and you don't think of him as human, but yet he's got some certain human qualities to him. I really like this eyeball. For whatever reason, I'm a big fan of when you can take side characters and put them into non-human forms. I'm big, as when we talk about anime or a manga we were talking about before, I'm a big, huge Hayao Miyazaki fan. And in all of his films, he always has side characters that are usually cute little animals or something along those lines. And there's the personality and the charm that those can add to a story, and especially one as dark as this. I think Hickman, this eyeball, I mean, this is like a little demonic creature, but yet he puts so much charm into this thing that you kind of almost like you feel sympathy for him. And he's having this conversation with Death, and you can see us like Death like holding him over the fire and stuff, and he's like, "Oh," and he's trying to make a deal with Death. And you can't make a deal with Death. And eventually Death just like shows him, you're going to tell me what I want. And he gets the map. I love Psalm 137 as a character's design. I think it looks really cool. That's a shout out to Nick Dragota's art. These 4 trackers were pretty cool. Again, it's just more mythos. It's more show the world. I love when I'm invested into something like that and you can show me new cool things. I like to use Star Wars references because it's so universal and everyone's seen it. It was kind of like when you saw Empire Strikes Back for the first time and you saw the bounty hunters, when Vader's addressing them, and it's like, you're like, who are those guys? This kind of reminded me, I was like, who are these guys? And they're all seem like they're badass. Babylon continues to be a really intriguing character. I love Balloon, how Balloon is deceiving him always. I think there's a really interesting theme for discussion there for a different time. But, just the idea that the world isn't necessarily as evil as others are trying to paint it out to be for us, for their motives. I think a lot of people can maybe relate to that concept, that there are those in this world that would make us see the world for more evil and ugliness than it actually is, and it doesn't serve our purpose, it serves theirs.
Right.
I think that's all I'll say about that. I continue to like Mao more and more. Interesting. At first I was like, but one little thing here, I mean, I've noticed this before, but this is the first time I mentioned it. The robot hands that she has, I just like, from an artistic standpoint, how the look is done with them, how they're red. When at a quick glance, it looks like her hands have been dipped into blood. every time I see her, that's the first thing I'm like, oh, her hands are bloody.
She's
oh,
got blood on her hands. Yeah.
but it's not. It's actually that. But I feel like that's an intentional artistic design that Hickman and Dragotta had, and I hope that's true because I think it's a good one. I like that little locket thing or whatever got use because that was into play. I love this page here where death's coming, and you can just feel the fury of just him. He's riding, and she's like, "Hurry, my love! If you're listening, hear me." And he's just, he's on it. Not a lot of time wasted on it. Hickman gets right to the point. We go back to Babylon. We already know the trackers are coming, so there's this tension building again. He just builds that tension. You know things are going to come to a head and explode, and the book just ends off. You're like, oh no, they found him. Is Death going to get there in time? We'll find out next issue. Maybe.
And on to the next issue, the last of this volume, and a fitting into this volume. We come right into it. I do want to point out, I don't know if this is I guess it's not the case for the cover, and I didn't see you flash the cover. I'm reading out of the large hardcovers, which is really, really fun. But issue number 25, it's got Madame LeVay, Madame LeVay on the cover. And it's so interesting that if you cover up her face, the physique below the neck is so appealing. And then if you look up, it's this old worn face that is not so appealing. And I just love the juxtaposition of that imagery. It's very telling and definitely on brand for this book. But we're in Ahab's Pass. Babylon knows that there's some people on his trail. He snuffed out the fire, and he's asking Balloon, did he ready his basically his tactical evasion and survival protocols? Balloon makes a reference that I think is notable here about how Babylon hasn't fully been listening to all of his suggestions, and Babylon says, yeah, I've been working on my independence. I thought that was pretty telling. But anyway, we get Billy Blackgun showing up and talking, and as he does, we also get Psalm 137 showing up, and then we also get I forgot the one's name that wasn't Wyatt, but we got that assassin showing up as well. So all of them are there. They're talking to Babylon, and Babylon tells Balloon, all right, take me up. And then he begins almost a Home Alone style setup to dispatch these people that's on his trail. So he does everything from having a boulder fall on one of them to having that boar that had become a friend charge Billy Blackgun, so he's mortally wounded. But Psalm 137 is the one that gets the drop right behind Babylon, got the gun to his head. It's really interesting seeing how Balloon starts to talk to Psalm 137. I said it's a good idea that y'all read it. I don't know that we'll read it. It is in the book, but it was Balloon who says, oh yeah, I know Psalm 137, and I also know about your kind, that you were made. And he starts reciting Psalm 137, and as he does, he starts to almost kind of hypnotize the entity Psalm 137 with this interesting image, and gets right up close, and then puts out tendrils or electronic tentacles and hacks Psalm 137. Kind of hacking the memory, looking to the past, seeing it's almost like a RoboCop style makeup of a man inside of a machine, and overloads and fries Psalm 137 system, and Psalm 137 falls out. Starts to kind of console Babylon by telling him the reality of humans and what they truly fear. And right as Balloon was finishing, Billy Blackgun pops back up. He's not completely dead. Slams Babylon to the ground, puts the gun to his head, telling Balloon, "Say bye-bye." The boy's about to get the bullet, and Billy is about to be dead too. And then we get another big blam, and we turn the page, and a big old splash page. One of my favorite panels in the book: Death with a smoking gun, saying goodbye.
Yeah.
Ash, the floor is yours.
Woo. This is probably my second favorite of the books tonight. Again, I like these characters quite a bit. Speaking about these new characters, so I'm very intrigued what they're going to do. I like Babylon quite a bit. is a very interesting character, and Balloon. It's something Hickman's exploring themes that I very much understand. I feel like I do, but he's presenting them in a new way that I haven't seen before, and that's what makes it intriguing. It's like, oh, I understand this commentary, but you're showing it to me in a new way that makes it very fun. Man, of course, the page I wanted to show is bad, but I got the impression that the bull was not part of the plan, or not the bull, the boar was not part of the plan. That the boar, just because Babylon had befriended it and been nice to it, that when it came time that Babylon was being attacked, that the boar gave its life. That was my take. And it's not showing me. I don't want to waste my time reloading it right now, but maybe I'm wrong. But that's what I saw. There's a big part, like you said, about the whole actual psalm where the balloon talks, and it is very interesting. I don't feel like I can adequately comment on it here today with the time. But again, I think this is just for something, not for me to comment on, but I think for anyone to just read for themselves and just see how it fits into the story. I really liked that, again, mythos building, that Psalm 137 is part man, part machine, and he was used by others, of course. And I think it was a pretty tragic circumstances, actually, that made him what it is. The Billy Blackgun thing was my favorite page, because I love how this is set up, and he's just got the gun to his head, and Balloon's like, no, you don't know what you're doing, stop. And Billy does know. He knows that he's dying, but Billy don't die alone. Billy Blackgun takes someone with him. So say goodbye to the boy and Billy. Blam! And you're just like, what? And of course, we all know now, because you already went through the book. But when I got to here, I was like, what happened? And you turn the page, and it's like, oh, death did get there in time. Goodbye. And just a fantastic shot there, and such a fitting ending. Like, again, I was talking about with these volumes, they always feel like they end in this like satisfactory explosion, right? And then I'm predicting, I haven't read any yet, but I'm predicting issue number 30 is going to start off kind of slow burn again and start building that pressure. I don't know, we'll see, but I'm not saying this in any form of complaint. I love it. I love that each issue feels like a microcosm of that, because I don't feel like any issue is wasted. I don't feel like, oh, that was a filler fluff issue. Wait till we get to the good stuff. You don't. Every single one has kept me wanting more. Like, what? Everything feels important, whether I understand it or not. I feel like, oh, I think this is going to come into play later, and then surely it does. But I love that also you extrapolate just from the single issue into 5 issues, or potentially maybe 6 on some of these volumes, where it's also one bigger story. And the ability to do that as a writer. It's one thing to be a writer and tell a good narrative that keeps your audience listening. It keeps your audience wanting more. It has something to say, so it makes them reflect on life and just whatever it is that you're talking about. Those are all super difficult things to do as a writer alone. But then to write in this format and be able to go, okay, now I need to take what I am doing and make it work every 20 pages individually, and then I need to put those together into like 5 or 6 chunks of 20 something pages, combine them so that works in a bigger chapter. That still works, and then also have it work so that when we put it all together as one giant 50 page, or however many, I think it's 45 issue full run, that works. Like, it just, Hickman, this is just brilliant. And I don't know what else to say. And Jagoda is winning me over with the art. At the beginning, I was really thinking about it like I think of American comics, And when I think of American comics, I expect a different kind of art. Not necessarily aesthetically, although that is part of it. But I was like, Jagoda just doesn't have that level of detail that I expect. This is how I was trained to appreciate American comics. But as I got exposed to manga, and I have way less knowledge about manga than I do about American comics, but at least I have an understanding of root, and how the art works and what the focus is on the visual storytelling there. And we can talk a lot more about this. DECORUM really does this as much on our next DECORUM issue, but Dragoda does that here. And I'm like, once I started seeing that, I was like, wait a second, this isn't playing off like a comic. This feels like a manga. It's just fitting the page format of a Western comic book. And then it started really standing out to me because in manga, you focus on the important details of the visual, not the entire detail of all the everything. Like it can just be one singular thing. And Dragoda's doing that constantly. And once I started getting that and feeling it as I was reading, it just heightened the story, especially since I started understanding what I was reading. Because when you dive into this series, I was lost in the beginning. I was like, what the heck is this even about? Like, okay, I guess it's a Revelations type story because of the Four Horsemen, but I don't know anything. This is so weird, but it just starts coming together. And I love that about comics too. That's another thing. A lot of times I see people talking about comics, and one of the things that I hear so much that makes me dismayed is like, oh, I don't know where to jump in. Like, oh, there's 200 issues of this. I got to go back and start. No, you don't. You just dive in. I tell people, like, back in the day, I just dived in. I start X-Men 210, just go and just pick it up. Yeah, you're going to be floundering around in the deep end, but that's part of the fun. Don't think of it as a negative. Like discovering what's actually happening. What's this all about? Now, this book it's not doing that. I didn't jump in the middle of the story, but when it starts off, that feeling of what the heck's going on? I don't even get this. This makes no sense to me. At first, it was like, whoa, it's weird, but you're floundering around in the deep end. But as soon as you realize, oh, wait a second, I can tread water. This is fine. I don't need to panic. And you just let the story go. It captures you, and it shows you. Hickman's like, look, don't worry. You're safe. I got a plan. This isn't just a bunch of random nonsense. And you're like, oh, okay. And as soon as one thing clicks, you're hooked. You're just like, I gotta see this through to the end. I gotta know where it goes. And I love this massive cast of characters. I was talking to my buddy actually tonight, earlier today. We were talking about Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, and he wants me to watch. I've watched about half of it. I stopped for a while. I need to pick it back up. He wants me to finish. He wants to rewatch. Anyways, and we were talking about characters, and we were talking about other books that I'm reading, and how big casts of characters that all have different parts in the story and things like that, and they're all individualized. They're not just clones of each other. They actually all feel very separate and unique. Full Metal Alchemist had that. I compared Game of Thrones. So when we were talking to him, I was like, oh yeah, Game of Thrones. On this book that I'm reading, the series, the Stormlight Chronicles by Brandon Sanderson, I'm like, that book has that too. And this book has that. All similar features that I love. I'm in love with this series, and I'm trusting that the plane is going to be landed well, because that's the only thing that could dock points off of this. I'm enthralled with this, and if anyone's not reading, if you guys are listening to us sit here and talk, and you're not reading this series, go out and read it. Like, you can get the first 5 volumes on Comixology Unlimited, super cheap. I think the books are on sale right now, actually, 99 cents on Comixology, or 15% discount if you're an Unlimited member. So you could get the entire series for $45 or less.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, That's like the price of just one of the trade, the big books. Um, and I'm looking forward to doing that. I bought this all digitally, as you know. This is my Comixology account we're looking at, and I'm thinking about rebuying it because I want those nice hardcovers. Because I'm liking it that much. This is a comic that's not a read once and just be like, oh, that was neat and never read again. I for sure am gonna read this again, for sure. Like there's so much that I'm just like, oh yeah, I kind of remember 10 issues ago but I didn't understand completely what I was reading the first time, and now I know when I read it again, I'm gonna see it in a different light because those things will make sense, and I'll be like, I know where this is going. No way, you know. Um, so yeah, I have blabbed on very long. So I will I will hand it back to you.
I don't have a lot of things to add. I could talk about this book to the cows come home and leave home and come home again. The main thing I'll say is something that you spoke on earlier. You made a reference to Wolf and Crow, and talking to Nick Dragata. It is true, when he and Hickman were putting the book together, the only note that was given, that they decided on for Hawking, or excuse me, Wolf and Crow, is that one of them would be white and one of them would be like one of them would be all white, the other one would be all black. So that, like, when it came to design, that was like the only thing that was kind of set in stone. So yep, very intentional with those things. Um, yeah, it was a story that had just continued to evolve, and I started it feeling the same way, like, oh, okay, like a cool apocalypse story. Like I can get down with that. Revelation is one of my favorite books in the Bible. Of course, hoping that it wouldn't, be blasphemous, because that would be important to me. But uh, I went in and I got so much more out of the book, um, with it. So yeah, no, it's just incredible. It does continue to unfold. And though we are recapping it and talking about it, and we're evangelists, for this book, so to speak, you can't sidestep just buying it and then and taking the ride. It is more than worth it. I've purchased this book at this point 3 times over. I've got I've got all digital through Comixology. I got the Humble Bundle pack that was out there, and I have all the hardcovers. Out of the 6 of the hardcovers, I've got 4 of them. I'm missing 2 of the variants. I'm missing one. Actually, I'm missing one variant and one regular cover, and I'm going to continue to collect the singles as well, which. Actually, oh yeah, that's right. Oh, yeah, I'm almost done collecting those. I've got almost all of them. So I mean, there's just no into it. It's just that great of a story to me personally, and the work as a whole, and the storytelling and everything. And yeah, so many people who know Jonathan Hickman more recently for the X-Men stuff, Hawks and Pox, maybe before, obviously, from Secret Wars, Avengers and New Avengers leading up to Secret Wars, going back a little further, Fantastic Four and FF. And there's some earlier stuff too. I really, really like some of the stuff that he did in the Ultimate Universe, and even going all the way back to Nick Fury, the Nick Fury book that he did, and Nick Fury, Agent of, I think, Nothing. It was, but oh, and then of course Shield, my favorite Marvel series that he did, even above Fantastic Four. Knowing him from all those things, if you come into this book, and if you haven't read much of his indie stuff, this is seriously unlike, I think, even his indie stuff, and definitely. But as I'm rereading this, I will say the thing that it's probably closest to on the Marvel side of things is the Fantastic Four run that he did. Far more heartfelt than a lot of the other stuff that tends to be more heady from Jonathan Hickman. But no, it's great. Ash said everything. I'm just enjoy hearing Ash being excited about it, reading the first time, and kind of bring some of those same feelings back up for me. It is truly a pleasure. But what makes it even more of a pleasure, as we continue to say, I might be beating a horse that's still alive, hopefully. You guys being in the chat, being here, giving us an audience, but not just being an audience, being a soundboard too. It makes the whole experience so much more of a joy. So again, thank you to people like Maranya here also often. Snatch Face the Fool being here. Comics Quirks, my main man Jimmy being in the building. Zach Richmond showing up. Tehillim 29, my main man. Check out his channel. It's awesome. Tons of good reviews. All of y'all being here. Joe Corallo, joining in on a show. And I see you, Joe. I'm further behind on East to West, but I really like what I've read so far. It won't let you down. And again, to Ash, I know I continue to say this, and I will gladly let you be the judge of it. But that plane, I don't know if I would. The plane landed like almost like a feather landing in your hand if you're just standing in the right place and you're eyeing it. It was a fantastic one. But let's take the journey, because it's not just about the ending. It's about the journey, and we still got a little bit of ways to go. We're rounding up year 2, jumping into year 3. It's a thick book. Gonna be fun.
Yeah, and if you can, I know everyone's got different things going on in their lives, man, but if you can catch up, we're going to be doing volume 7 in 2 weeks. So if you can catch up, to that, I don't know, join us back. I feel these books would be great no matter what. If I just read these by myself and put them away, I would have enjoyed them. But being able to enjoy them and then be able to talk about them like this, it just amplifies it. And I wish I could do this on every book that I read. I wish every book that I read was worth doing what we're doing here. This is what we want out of the hobby. And I'm grateful, Skip, that you are here to do this with me. I'm grateful you guys are here in the audience to give us a reason to even do this. Ronnie says the only flaw that she saw in the book was that the speech balloons, they bothered her a bit. They said the white shapes stuck out a little bit too much with all the other color tones, but that's a nitpick. I could understand that. Unfortunately, I'm not sure how you get around that. It's kind of the nature of comics, but the way that these books are, it really does use a lot of that color, big color splashes, not just to color something so it looks accurate, but to color for emotion. So I can I'm not sure how you do it. Manga gets around it because most of it's all black and white, so you don't see that as a problem. Let's see. Dominic tells us we got a solid reading tonight. Thanks, although we didn't really read it. Jimmy says volume 7. Dang, going through the series quick. Wow, that's been 3 months, Jimmy. 3.5 months, because we didn't actually have an episode last time. So yeah, 3.5 months. So we'll be on volume 7 on month 4. So yeah, just a year's gone by. Snatch Face says, I'm going to check out both these books once I catch up with Once and Future. Well, you make your decision on what works best for you. I would just love to see you catch up so you can ride along with us, because we're got the scheduled time, and if you can be up to 7 by the next showtime. I'm reading these just one every 2 weeks. I'm not reading ahead. So sometimes it's tough because I'll read, the issues for the show, and I'm like, okay, and then I'll be like, no, I want to keep going. I have to force myself to stop. But it's better that way, because I could have just binged all this and then done these shows every 2 weeks. It probably would have worked, but I'm enjoying being immersed in this for 4 months, and it's going to be a total of 5 months when all said and done. Let's see. Keep up the great content. And Jimmy says, as an adult, never say choo-choo again, Skip. I don't know what that means, but I feel you should be able to say choo-choo if you want to say choo-choo. With that, folks, I think that's going to be it for tonight for me and Skip. Thanks for watching the show. If you made it this far, you are truly special to us. And if you made it this far on a replay, special thanks to you. Hopefully you can make a live broadcast with us and join us in the chat. It's a lot of fun. And stay tuned. I'm going to try. I have to communicate with Skip and other people involved. We're going to try to hopefully, if all the cards lay out correctly, to have a criminal cast this week at Brubaker. The issue is Lawless. The volume 2 of the Brubaker run. Read up on that. Read Lawless. And that's the one we'll be talking about. I'm not sure about time, but stay tuned. We'll be posting it. Do you have any final words, Skip?
Yes. Hey, Jimmy. Choo choo.
Nice. Good night, everyone.